Am I the a-hole for canceling a check of $12,000 that I wrote for my infertile friend for her next IVF cycle over a joke? Original post. I, female 35, am infertile. My ex-husband and I tried everything to have kids, but it just never happened. He divorced me, went and married someone younger who was able to give him a kid, and from what I gather, they're expecting a second child together. It hurts seeing someone else have what I couldn't. I get frustrated with myself sometimes, and with family blaming me for basically everything. I turn to my friends for support, especially Ellie. She's in the same infertility boat as me, but she and her husband are currently trying IVF hoping it would work. Ellie asked me for help to pay for upcoming IVF cycle, and I agreed to write her a check of $1,200,000. I really wanted to help her, and the money came with no strings attached. I wrote the check and gave it to her last week. She was very appreciative of it. The very next day, I got a sudden message from a mutual friend, Carol, with a screenshot of the conversation she had with Ellie. Turns out she and Ellie were talking about the next IVF cycle, and Ellie said she hoped the cycle would work because she didn't want to end up being divorced and having her husband go marry someone younger and have a baby with them and another one on the way. While she's alone and without a family at 35, she's 32. I was stunned and hurt. I knew she meant me here, but I did not confront her. I simply contacted my bank and canceled the check. In the evening, Ellie called to ask why I canceled the check, and I told her. She went crazy, saying she didn't mean it that way, and that she thought that this was somewhat an inside joke between desperate infertile women. She came over with her husband the next day begging I write another check, but I refused. An argument ensued, and her husband thought I wasn't being supportive of her like when she supported me throughout my struggles. She left crying and we haven't talked since then. Her husband keeps reminding me, while repeatedly calling Carol a toxic snake, of the date of the next cycle, saying they can't have it after I took the money that was supposed to pay for it back. Some friends think I'm being oversensitive. Carol is on my side telling me to tell them to go to hell, but I feel so bad about it. What I've done might just damage our 15 years of friendship. Maybe I shouldn't have canceled it, but I just felt so offended by what she said about me, and how she basically mocked my unfortunate circumstances. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the little update. Not the a-hole. It was a cruel thing to do of her, especially after you were being so gracious towards them. By the way, just a reminder, your worth is not connected to your ability to bear children. Oh, and to the people saying that worth kind is tied to children, especially as a woman, no it's not. Anyone telling you any different is just wrong. You decide what your contribution is to the world, what your legacy is. And from what I hear, Opie has the biggest, kindest giving heart while still having strong moral values. That makes her worth a lot in my book. Anyone who doesn't see that is just blind and oblivious. Yep. Also, 15 years of friendship, but only now she's showing her real face, and how she devalues Opie for not having a child and for her husband having left her. In the words of Maya Angelou, when people show you who they are, believe them. May God bless Carol. She saved Opie. Years do not mean anything when friends act like this friend and her husband, trying to guilt trip Opie. Holy smokes, not the a-hole. $12,000, no strings attached? Yeah, I would be kissing your butt. You would be my future kid's godparent. I would wake up grateful for your existence every freaking day. Bashing you to another friend behind your back? Hell freaking no. I would be out there calling your praises from the rooftops. Ellie doesn't deserve your friendship, let alone your money. Right? I'm glad Opie found in time to cancel the check. But I also know what a punch in the gut it is, to realize you've been used. It's just awful, if not worse than being successfully swindled. Glad Carol had the decency to tell Opie as well. Opie should treat herself to a nice vacation to get away from the BS. Now for the mini update. Hello again, and wow, thank you so much for all the support and compassion that you've shown me. I could feel it through my screen. I have decided I'm going to put some distance between me and Ellie. Things have been rough lately, and I think that distance is what I need right now, especially for my mental health. After reading some comments here, I now feel less heavy and more relieved. Doesn't change the fact that I'm still completely and utterly shocked by Allie's behavior. It's a shame having to come to the realization that even those who are supportive of you the most could cause much harm. Oh, and by the way, I sent Carol a link for this thread to see what her thoughts were, and she just laughed. Next story. Am I the a-hole for backing out of a friend's trip after it became a groomsman trip for a wedding I'm not in? I have had a group of 4 friends since elementary school. The 5 of us have stayed close friends through elementary, middle and high school, going to the same schools, and then through university. Separate universities, but we would visit often and stayed very close. We are all 26-year-old guys and have been friends for 19 years now. One of the guys in the group, Brandon, is getting married in January. Brandon asked the other 3 guys to be groomsmen in his wedding, alongside his 2 brothers and 2 of his friends from college. This left me the only homie in the group who wasn't a groomsman. I was upset when I first realized, but I talked to my parents about it, and they reminded me it's Brandon's wedding and not a group event. He can have who he likes up there. And just because I'm not a groomsman doesn't mean Brandon doesn't consider me a friend, and that he does already have 7 people up there beside him, which is a lot. My parents are the only one I ever told I was upset about it, and now I think I'm pretty well over it. They've had a few groom's party gatherings, like they went for drinks after they got fitted for suits, they went golfing together, and Brandon and his fiancée had a barbecue for their wedding party. That's always a weird reminder for me. Now, my friends and I usually go on a trip in December to watch a football game. We started a now tradition in our first year in university and have been going every year since. It's always just been the 5 of us friends, and we go for like 3 to 4 days. On Tuesday, my 3 friends came to me and wanted to know my opinion on inviting the other groomsmen on the trip as a surprise to Brandon. The 3 of them were clearly all for this idea and really wanted me to say yes. I told them I wasn't sure, I had to think about it, which was awkward because it was obvious they thought I was just going to say yes. I spoke to them about it today and said, honestly, I don't want to go on a trip being the only non-groomsman. I know Brandon's brothers, and I've met his college friends and they're all cool, but I don't want to be the clear odd man out. I told my friends that they should do it, I just won't go this year, which was fine for me because I could do with saving some money because I have a separate destination wedding to go in February now. The other guys won't invite the other groomsmen if it means I won't come. But it's clear they're also annoyed at them not being able to invite the groomsmen because of me. One of my friends spoke to me separately and he told me he really thinks I'm not fair or a good friend and asked if it's because I resent not being a groomsman. Feels like any decision I make besides agreeing to go on a trip with the 4 other groomsmen is going to make them mad at me. Am I the a-hole for backing out of the trip if I'm going to be the only non-groomsman? Not the a-hole. You didn't make a big deal about not being a groomsman. They are the a-holes for ruining the trip that has been a tradition for years. If they want the others to come, then you have every right to stay home. At that point, it's no longer keeping the tradition, but changing it to a wedding event. Yes, OP, just simply tell those other 3 friends that you have a pricey planned trip in February. So making this a groomsman party this year works for everyone. And leave it there. Any backlash you get, just know that it's all about them. And have fun at the destination wedding. This right here. Brandon created this dynamic and the guys need to understand why it'll be uncomfortable for you to participate. Unless Brandon is going to explain why you weren't invited, and it's a legit reason, hard to think of one, that's not simply doesn't view you as a close friend. You absolutely should not feel like an a-hole for refusing to go on this trip. Not the a-hole. Yes, this isn't really about OP not being a groomsman. It's about there being a lot of other activities that OP has been left out of because he's not a groomsman, and him not wanting to feel like an outsider when the event is a group thing that he should be central to. The others are getting carried away with the groomsmen group to OP's detriment. It's a wedding party. It doesn't have to take over all of their activities for the year. And now they want OP to go along with their idea, because if he agrees then everything's okay. And they don't have to feel guilty about recentering themselves to a group he's excluded from. And you know, if all the groomsmen come, then there will be a lot of talk about the other things they've been doing that OP was left out of. Some things that he actually could have been included in if it was just that they couldn't have one more groomsman on a day. Next story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my husband for making my daughter feel bad? So my oldest daughter, who I'll call May, is 16. She has a job, has had it for about 5 months. Out of all the children, she's the most mature. She's also good at saving, but she rarely spends money on things she enjoys, and instead keeps it in her bank account. My husband wanted to have her start paying her phone bill immediately. It would have been $50 monthly, but I said no and eventually compromised at the beginning of October. Note that my husband, her stepfather, is very money tight and he tells her to pay everything she wants. Now, I agree with this somewhat, as she should be monetarily responsible so she's ready for college. But he wants her to pay for everything. Anytime she asks for something, he'll respond with, "You have money, buy it yourself." Now, fast forward to today. May has been out of town on a trip with her class, and she was going to be gone for a week. Because this is a national event that happens every year and there in the city, everything is very expensive. She has a credit card under her name that is connected to my account, and I said she could use it for meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, but snacks and souvenirs she would have to buy on her own. She called earlier and we were talking while my husband was in the room. She started complaining about how expensive everything was, and she jokingly said she was going to go bankrupt once she returned from her trip. I told her not to worry about it, and if she needed, she could use her credit card for whatever. Then my husband pipes in and says, "Stop guilting your mother to give you money. Whatever you want, you can buy yourself." She was quiet for a moment, before saying that she wasn't asking for anything. And then he repeated, "Don't guilt your mother. How can you be morally okay with that?" She said she wasn't calling to ask for money, that she just wanted to complain and that she was going to hang up. I took her off speaker to tell her it was fine, but she just swore up and down she wasn't trying to guilt me, and that she was just going to pretend that call never happened and that it was fine. And then she hung up. I was so angry. I yelled at him, told him he was being ridiculous and that she was still a child. I left before he could respond. I'm still angry. She apologizes to me every time she buys a meal because she thinks it's too much. I've noticed that she buys her own breakfast and only spends money on lunch and dinner, even though I've said she can do all three. I'm angry and I don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole for yelling at your husband, but you're the a-hole for continuing to be in a relationship with someone who hates your kid. It makes her feel guilty for her existence and the associated costs. You need to make it clear that if he doesn't change his behavior immediately and completely, you'll be out the door. That's something I don't think is truly highlighted. He's literally making her feel guilty for existing in their lives. She's 16. You should be paying for her meals and the things she needs for school and life. He's definitely a, you can stay here and pay rent and utilities at 18 or you can find a new place to live kind of man. And that's just unacceptable. I have a brother who is in his 40s and doesn't pay his own cell phone bill. He's on my parents' plan and it's $10 a month. So I don't know what plan your daughter is on that it's $50. Unless your a-hole husband thinks she has to have her own plan, just so he can then turn around and decide to stop paying for it. Yeah, buying groceries causes me physical pain because my dad acted like the $5 for a middle school field trip was going to put us out on the streets. He'd snarl and pick at us anytime we needed money. I do not speak to my father anymore. Doing nothing is taking a side OP. If you stay, you're showing her who you choose. You're the a-hole for marrying a man that treats your daughter this way. She's 16, still a minor. You are responsible for feeding her and should be paying all of her expenses, within reason, until at least 18. Let her save her money to build a future. If I was her, I would save every penny to get away from that horrid man. Choose your daughter. Everyone sucks here. Someday your daughter, and perhaps your other children too, will ask you why you made them live with a man who treated them like this. Last story. Am I the a-hole for reporting my son's good teacher for taking his confiscated phone home with her where it got damaged? Last week, Friday, my son, 10, got his phone confiscated at school. He was mucking around with it during class, and the school rules are clear about phone usage during class without permission, so I totally understood. The normal protocol is that the phone would go to the office where it would be returned to the student at the end of the day or the next day. His teacher, however, apparently forgot to stop by the office before going home after school, so she accidentally took it home with her, and through some negligence, the phone broke in the hands of her toddler. Admittedly, she was very upfront about it. It even came to our house personally to tell us what happened and apologize, which I respect. She suggested a repayment plan for the phone and offered an old phone of hers for him in the meantime, but it was essentially a brick with a screen. After she left, I sent an email to the school about everything simply because I think it's something the school should also be involved in, since she's a teacher and easily took home a confiscated device, albeit by mistake. Received a response Monday morning apologizing for what happened and promising to address the issue. So, my sister-in-law works at a high school but smokes with the teachers at the junior school, which is where she bumped into this teacher who was angry and said that we were being a-holes reporting it, since she already promised to pay for the phone, offered an alternative and is a good teacher, so we're messing with her career unnecessarily. So yeah, are we the a-holes? Not the a-hole. Taking the phone home accidentally could be understood to a degree. There's zero reasons why it should have been within her toddler's reach. Info. OP, did you actually see the broken phone? Maybe it's just my suspicious little brain, but there was a similar post a while ago where everyone heavily suspected the teacher of stealing the phone and trying to give a crappy phone back as payment. The original phone was not actually broken. The teacher kept it. Although this teacher offering a payment plan suggests they're willing to completely pay for a new phone, not just steal and give a crappy phone back. Yeah, it's busted. Screen severely cracked and that weird ink or dead pixel stuff is blocking 3/4 of the screen. Looking at the damage now though, unless her toddler is the next Hulk, I'm starting to doubt that was the cause since it had a protector in case. Not the a-hole. The teacher did not follow guidelines, albeit your son wasn't wrong. However, phones prices scale, and she had no reason to take it home with her. How her toddler then got a hold of it and broke it is a completely different issue. Teacher is upset she got in trouble for not following the rules, just like your son was upset his phone was taken for not following the rules.